This story is entitled The Lurker in the Night, written by Slice Legitimate 8674. The killer struck for the first time a year ago. I remember it clearly. It was all over the newspapers. The pretty blonde smoking her cigarette outside the old cinema didn't see it coming. She never stood a chance. All anyone heard was a piercing shriek, and that's it. She was probably dead before she hit the ground. No one saw the guy either. He disappeared into the rainy night like a phantom. I mean, literally, he was gone in seconds. I always wonder if she screamed from pain or terror. Everyone cowered around her body afterwards, shedding tears in the downpour as the cops questioned them. So it was a few hours before some unlucky usher went inside again and made the gruesome find that the golden-haired beauty out front wasn't the evening's first victim. He was in the theater, sitting behind an aging socialite out by herself. A raucous screwball comedy was showing, so no one heard her screams over their laughter. They were all too busy having a good time. The authorities were stumped. They didn't want to admit it, but how the guy got in and out like that without so much as attracting a shred of attention baffled them. I think it frightened them too. A famous shrink they consulted said that he likely didn't run off that night, but hid close by in the shadows, maybe even blending in with the crowd, watching the mayhem he created unfold around him, giddy with delight while savoring his handiwork. This got everyone excited, naturally. Mothers wouldn't let their kids play outside after dark, and women refused to walk alone at night. Some even started carrying a piece on them. I wasn't scared, though. Stuff like this is bound to happen once in a while. In a big city, it's inevitable. I didn't exactly fit the killer's desired type either. After a few weeks, things started to go back to normal, but just as people were starting to forget, the freshly healed wound on our city was ripped back open. Someone blew the mayor's brains out while he was having a nap outside in his hammock at lunch. His bodyguards tried to catch the guy, but he was fast. They chased peals of maniacal laughter into the open woods behind City Hall until both of them were shot. Only one survived. He was in the hospital for months after his amputation. The cops and reporters hounded the poor guy relentlessly. After all, he was the only one who'd seen the killer's face. He couldn't give them anything useful, no matter how much the sketch artist prodded at his memory or how often the hypnotist dangled his gold pocket watch in front of his face. The only thing he kept saying, over and over, was that it was the most horrible face he'd ever seen in his life. This scared people. I mean, really scared them. I saw the grim fear etched into their faces as I strolled through the shadows and secret alleys of the city. Still, I was unfazed. I knew how to keep well hidden. The killer couldn't find me. Plus, what would he want with me? They ramped up security around all the fat cat politicians and businessmen in town. You should have seen it. They wouldn't go anywhere without their hired beefcakes. Little old men in expensive suits not realizing they were showing the world just how important they were. Hell, I even eavesdropped on a few whispered conversations in quiet rooms, the kind where people bare their souls when they're all alone with someone they trust. They all said, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if the killer took out a few more of them. But I think he heard them from far off. He strangled a homeless man to death, a poor, unloved fellow who couldn't afford any protection. It must have been horrible for him. When they found his body, it was covered in honey, with giant red ants and maggots in every nook and orifice, feeding. His face was petrified into an expression of almost preternatural terror. People stopped going outside completely after that. The city was a tomb. I would know. I was the only one walking the streets anymore. My footsteps echoed off the darkened houses with drawn curtains and empty office buildings and shops as I looked in vain for any companionship. I even started dressing differently in an effort to draw him out. By this point, I had even given anything to catch a glimpse of this fiend from hell. But that was a bad idea. I probably should have followed their advice. I probably should have locked my doors. I probably should have closed my windows, or at least gotten a dog. You see, I lived by myself on a lonely dirt road in the woods. I remember lying in bed, sleepless on that steamy summer night, with the full moon shining into my room from deep space. Ancient people thought that the moon drove you mad. I remember the gentle tinkling of the wind chimes on my porch stopping as he approached. I remember screaming as he smashed through my window with his bare hands, clearing away broken glass without so much as a scratch, and then climbing into my bedroom effortlessly, his lean, sinewy frame contorting in a way no man possibly can. He looked just as I'd always imagined, like a living nightmare. "Why do you kill?" I screamed hoarsely, thrashing in my sheets as he seemed to float through the air towards me, the raised butcher knife in his gnarled right hand glistening silver in the moonlight. "Why me?" He halted next to me, blacking out the moonlight completely. His pockmarked, sickly green face crinkled like paper as a demented grin spread across his black lips. He leered down at me, his yellow eyes glowing with a frenzied insanity that betrayed no trace of human warmth behind them. "Everyone always asks that. Everyone looks for a reason. Can't you see it's what I'm made for?" He might have cackled after that. I don't know. He brought down the heavy butcher knife, and the blackness swallowed me for good.